Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko says his country has started taking delivery of Russian tactical nuclear weapons. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Friday that Russia, which will retain control of the weapons, would start deploying them in close ally Belarus after a special storage facility to house them were made ready. The deployment is Moscow's first move of such warheads, shorter range, less powerful nuclear weapons that could potentially be used on the battlefield outside Russia since the fall of the Soviet Union. The US and its allies have repeatedly warned Moscow against the use of nuclear weapons against Ukraine.
All right, Chief Correspondent John Cookson has been monitoring developments, and he joins us now from London for more. John, great to see you. What more can you tell us about this overnight attack on the city of Odesa?
Hi, ladies. Great to be on Newsday as always. Well, Odesa, the so-called Pearl of the Black Sea, normally in normal times a holiday resort with lots of casinos, sandy beaches, and all the trappings of a fantastic place to be for the summer. But these are not normal times. The seafront down in Odesa is something of a fortress. And, of course, we're talking about yet another cruise missile attack on Odesa. It's a shopping centre and McDonald's. Now, if this was a deliberate target of a civilian structure where civilians were expected to be, that is a war crime, one of, frankly, thousands now of war crimes carried out by the Russians against the civilians of Ukraine, and also a symbolic venture by Putin to say that whilst the Ukrainians have got this limited counteroffensive in one part of the country, Russia can strike with impunity to a major city like Odesa. It sends a very strong message of strength from Russia to the Ukrainians. Whether they take a lot of notice of that, because this has been going on for some 16 months now, and the Ukrainians, although weary of war, their determination is not undimmed. I was there only a couple of weeks ago, and indeed it was in Odesa in March, and the spirit of the people will not be blunted by attacks such as this. Tragically, 3 dead. You mentioned Kryvyi Key, also, which was an attack on Zelensky's hometown yesterday. That death toll in that has risen to 12, sadly. And on Lukashenko, that's a worrying move that tactical nuclear weapons have now arrived north in a country north of Ukraine. Of course, it was from Belarus that part of the invasion was launched a year last February from the north into Ukraine to attack the cities in the north, including Kiev and surrounding areas. He says that he's got nuclear weapons that are 3 times the power of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs that were dropped in 1945 by the Americans. I doubt that's true. If they're tactical nuclear weapons, they have a much lesser firepower, if you like, than those very big bombs that were dropped on Japan. Nevertheless, a tactical nuclear weapon can easily take out a town. So it's an extremely worrying development. I think he's probably come out with this because NATO is currently operating on a massive air exercise over Germany and Central Europe at the moment. So it may be Lukashenko responding to that, saying, "Yeah, okay, NATO. Well, look what I've got. We've got tactical nuclear weapons." It's all very depressing and very dangerous at times.
Just looking at the screen now, and there's some dramatic images that have emerged of the aftermath of the major dam last week. What impact has there been on the region, John?
Yeah, the blasting of the Kharkovsk dam, and we don't know who did it. Was it the Russians who were blaming the Ukrainians, which seems unlikely. The damage is absolutely catastrophic. You've seen what remains of villages floating down the Dnieper River, heading towards the Black Sea. They haven't reached there yet, but they're certainly turning up. in towns on the riverbank on the way to the Black Sea. You saw a fellow there blowing a saxophone. He's actually playing the Ukrainian national anthem to some applause from people who are close by. But in terms of cost, human lives, we don't know how many have been lost, maybe 20 in Russian-occupied Ukraine and Ukraine proper, but we don't know the exact figure. Lots of animals have been lost. It's a big farming area. And experts say that loss of crops like wheat amount to about $1.5 billion in losses. So, the effects of this dam being blown, whoever did it, has been absolutely enormous.
Indeed, John. Now, there are some concerns that have been raised about the safety of the Zaporizia nuclear plant, especially when you bear in mind that the IAEA chief, Rafael Grossi, has also postponed his visit or delayed the visit to the plant. He was supposed to inspect, the safety of it. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what could have actually caused that delay on his part?
Well, the delay is because it's just not safe for him to go there. The Zaporizia nuclear plant is slap bang in the middle of a war zone. It is shelled, or around the area around it is shelled from time to time. The IAEA actually have people there on a permanent basis, a handful of officials who are not Ukrainian or Russian, but come from elsewhere, members of the IAEA. The plant currently under Russian occupation, but manned by the Ukrainians. And at first, it was thought that the blasting of the dam and the reduction in the levels of the Dnipro River wasn't going to cause much harm to the plant, which relies on the Dnipro River for its water. But it seems now that in the long term, there could be an issue if the water supplies start to run very, very low, because cooling ponds need this water for the storage of spent nuclear fuel rods, which, if they're not cooled, can cause a nuclear meltdown. So much concern, not in the immediate future, but certainly a month or so from now, if it is that the Dnipro River levels drop so much that they can't get the water, then that's a big problem for the nuclear power plant. Grossi wants to go there to see, not only to see his people, but also to generally assess the situation. And earlier in the week, he called for the Russians and the Ukrainians to refrain from bombing the plant. And, the fact that he has to do that is quite incredible. Why would anyone want to bomb a nuclear power plant which is still active? At least one of the 6 reactors is still working.
Okay, John, how would you assess the success otherwise of the Ukrainian counter-offensive at this point?
Well, look, the Russians occupy about 1/5 of the country at the moment, if you include Crimea, and the so-called counteroffensive is underway. The Ukrainians saying that they have recovered some 3 square kilometers of land. So out of the tens of thousands that are still to be liberated, they've got a long way to go. It's a very bloody operation. Neither side giving casualty figures. The Ukrainians claim the Russians are losing 900 soldiers a day in street-to-street fighting. Putin yesterday claimed that his forces have destroyed 160 Ukrainian tanks and 360 armored vehicles. The Ukrainians claim they've destroyed 54 Russian tanks. It's a difficult situation for both sides, and the Ukrainians know they've got limited time, really, only some few months perhaps, to get as much land back as they can before there'll be huge pressure from the international community to come to some kind of peace settlement or some kind of treaty to stop the fighting.
Duly noted, John. Arise, Chief Correspondent John Cookson, we'd like to say a big thank you for your time and analysis. Please be safe.